Guys, this is part 2 of my 3-part video series listing the top 30 heavyweights on the planet as of January 2017. Now today, as I'm filming it, it's January the 2nd. The first instalment went up yesterday on January the 1st. So please do take the time to check out that video, potentially go and check that one out before you watch this one if you haven't seen it already. In that video we covered heavyweights number 30 through to number 21, and I also talked through how I rate heavyweights in certain ways and the fact that this is a resume based list as opposed to head to head. Anyway, this video we're going to discuss numbers 20 through to number 11, and then in the final third part, which will hopefully be up tomorrow or the day after, we'll discuss numbers 10 through to number 1. So without further ado, we'll begin with the heavyweight who I've rated at number 20, Christian Hamer. Now, Christian Hamer is probably best known to UK boxing fans for suffering a one-sided defeat at the hands of Tyson Fury when they fought. Recently, he scored a big win over Erkan Tepe, which is why I've got him so highly rated on the list. Now, the quality of that win is debatable because Erkan Tepe seemingly was a far less effective fighter when not on performance-enhancing drugs. So the fact that Christian Hamer went out and beat Tepe doesn't necessarily mean that Christian Hamer is a better fighter than David Price or David Price or Johan Duhaupas, who lost to Tepe. Having said that, I did feel that based on the form and based on the fact that I've got Tepe in the top 30, I wanted to include Christian Hamer and I wanted to include him higher. He's got some other form on his resume. I know there's been 1 or 2 losses, but other bits and pieces of form, wins over the likes of Leif Blasson, Sermon Williams, Michael Sprott, etc. And I felt that the recent form over Erkan Tepe just deserved to nudge him into the top 20. So I've got Christian Hamer at number 20. At number 19 even, Robert Helenius. Now Helenius is just coming off a comeback win against Omar Bastille, I think the guy's name was. Prior to that, as we know, he suffered a big loss, a KO loss at the hands of Johan Duhaupas. Prior to that loss, Helenius, whilst he'd been inactive, had been establishing a reputation as a prospect to follow. He had some decent wins earlier on in his career, the likes of Derek Chisora in a close fight, Samuel Peter, more recently Franz Rill, and I just felt that despite Helenius suffering that loss to Duhaupas is a relatively credible heavyweight, and I still thought that the history of Robert Helenius' form deserved to rank him just inside the top 20. So I've got Helenius at number 19. At number 18, I've got Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte recently snuck a victory in against Derek Chisora in a very, very close fight. So that was the main piece of form really that got me to include Dillian Whyte in this list. As you guys will know, if you watched the first part of the video, I had Derek Chisora ranked at number 26. So guys like Helenius and guys like Dillian Whyte, who got the nod over him, albeit that both were in very, very close fights, I felt deserved to be a good notch higher. So I've got Dillian Whyte at number 18. Some other bits and pieces of form on his resume: Brian Minto, David Allen, Ian Lewison, those sort of names. So I wanted to put Dillian Whyte in at number 18, and he's someone who will probably be involved in big fights in 2017 and could potentially climb a lot higher. At number 17, Tony Thompson. Now I know Tony Thompson's toyed with retirement several times, but as far as I know, recently he's been calling out fighters and looking to make fights. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to class him as an active fighter. Now Thompson's had some losses on his resume recently. He's lost to the likes of Carlos Takam and Luis Ortiz, but those are highly, highly rated guys, and it tends to be that Tony Thompson only loses to the top guys in the sport, even at his advancing age. He still holds relatively recent victories, 2 victories in fact over Odlin Solis, and as we all will know, 2 big knockout wins over David Price. So for me, Tony Thompson deserves his place still in the top 20, and I've got him listed at number 17. In at number 16, let me just consult my list. Yes, in at number 16, I've got Johan Duhaupas. He suffered an unfortunate loss recently at the hand of Alexander Povetkin, where he went as a late notice opponent after Povetkin seemingly had failed a drug test. So it's hard to rank him and hard to know how many places to move him down off the back of that loss. I've decided that on balance I needed to keep him up in the top 20. As we know, Duhaupas put in a very credible losing performance against Deontay Wilder. In addition to that, as we've already discussed in this video, he's got a big knockout win over Robert Helenius, who, is a prospect who I rate at a certain level. So I thought Duhaupas deserved his place in the top 20, and I've got him ranked at number 16. In at number 15, a guy who historically I haven't been overly sold on, Gerald Washington. The main reason why I've rated him so highly is because of his performance against Eddie Chambers. Now, that wasn't a great fight. I don't suggest you guys go and spend your afternoons rewatching that fight. And Eddie Chambers is certainly a fighter who has the potential to have their career go down as a major disappointment, which is unfortunate. But Eddie Chambers is a very talented fighter. He's a hard guy to beat. And usually you would expect Eddie Chambers not to lose unless he was coming up at the elite level. I actually think that resume-wise, Washington's win over Eddie Chambers was enough on its own to include him in the top 20. And there's a few other bits and pieces of form in there, which for me makes me put Gerald Washington in at 15. Having seen him fight a few times, he's not a guy who I overly rate. He's not someone who I think is a world champion in the making. But as I've said time and time again throughout this series, this list is about form in the book, and that win over Eddie Chambers for me is impressive enough to merit inclusion. As we move towards number 14, Andy Ruiz. Now, Andy Ruiz is a very hard guy to rate. I couldn't think where to pick Andy Ruiz. It took me a long time to try and work out how to place him in this list. I actually think there's an argument, and I know certain Joseph Parker fans out there will hate me saying this, I think there's an argument that Andy Ruiz is not yet a top 30 heavyweight. And the reason for that argument is just that the quality of wins on his resume is too low. He doesn't have a major win. I also think, depending on how you do these lists, there'd also be an argument to have him higher than 14 on the basis of how close his fight with Joseph Parker was. Now, as I said at the start of the first part of this series, wins are the thing I look for the most in terms of ranking a fighter. But second to that is the nature of their losses. And I mentioned that again with Derek Chisora, and I ranked him at number 26. But I thought I had to rate Ruiz at number 14 based on the nature of his loss with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker is obviously a highly rated fighter. I don't think anyone will be too surprised when I say that Joseph Parker's name is going to come up on this list, higher than number 14. And Ruiz pushed Parker very close in a fight that many people felt was a draw. A few people even felt that Andy Ruiz won. Personally, I scored the fight 7 rounds to 5 in favour of Joe Parker. I couldn't really have a major argument had the fight gone to a draw. So I've got Ruiz at 14. He's a perplexing fighter. He's very hard to know how highly to rate him and to work out where he should be in these lists. So I'm sure people will think he should be higher, should be lower. I couldn't work it out, and number 14 I thought was the fairest position. Moving on, number 13, and this is going to be an unpopular one because this guy is a very unpopular figure within boxing. Number 13, I've got Malik Scott. Now, Malik Scott is best known for his high-profile losses, the dubious destruction at the hands of Deontay Wilder, the dubious quitting at the hands of Derek Chisora. Most recently, a fight with Luis Ortiz when Malik Scott barely threw a punch all night. Because of that, Malik Scott is not a popular man. But let's look at the facts of the matter. If you look at the guys that Malik Scott is losing to here, Wilder, Ortiz, these are highly rated guys. And what you'll notice is when he drops one level lower, he tends to be successful. So he's drew with Vyacheslav Glazkov in a fight that most people felt that he won. He beat Tony Thompson. He beat him with a bit in hand. I rated Thompson at 17, so I wanted to have Scott a fair few places above him. Also a big win where he boxed fantastically against Alex Leopai. Scott, he's a slickster, he's a smooth operator inside the ring. And whilst I think he's going to come up time and time again, come up a bit short when he faces the elite guys, especially the guys with real power and real momentum at the top of the sport, Scott is still a threat to anyone in the top 20, outside of the elite hardcore, as I say. Number 12, Bermain Stavern. Stavern's another guy who's quite a hard guy to work out. Obviously, former WBC champion, best known for wins over Chris Arreola, who's a fighter who was actually just outside of my top 30. I considered putting Arreola in. I considered sneaking him in at 30 or 29. I think realistically I've got Arreola somewhere between 31 and 35. And Stavern's got two relatively convincing wins over him. Other bits and pieces of form, as I say, probably best known, unfortunately, for going the distance and taking a hammering at the hands of Deontay Wilder. But I felt Bermain Stavern, despite inactivity, deserves to be in the top 15, and I've got him at number 12. Clearly, had he fought Povetkin as was intended, he could have had the potential to be a hell of a lot higher, or he could have had the potential to be a bit lower. Let's see how it progresses. Let's see. You'd have to assume there'll be a big fight on the horizon in 2017 for Bermain Stavern, so look forward with interest to seeing if he goes up or down. At number 11, Carlos Takam. Carlos Takam is a guy who's he's a solid yardstick in the heavyweight division. A good victory over Tony Thompson, who, as I say, I've got at 17. A good draw with Mike Perez, who, is a troubled fighter, but on his day, a very, very talented fighter. And, Carlos Takam performed with immense credit against Joseph Parker, another guy who pushed Parker very close in a not dissimilar manner to how Andy Ruiz did. I rated Takam a few places above Ruiz based on the quality of Takam's best wins. There's no Tony Thompson on Andy Ruiz's resume, so that's why I've gone Carlos Takam slightly higher in at number 11. He was initially intended to fight Johan Duhaupas in 2017. Doesn't look, unclear whether that's still going ahead after Duhaupas lost to Povetkin. So we shall see. But yeah, Carlos Takam I've got in at number 11. So let me give you guys numbers 20 through to 11 again. 20, I've got Christian Hamer. 19, I've got Robert Helenius. 18, you got Dillian White. 17, you got Tony Thompson. In at number 16, Johan Duhaupas. 15, I have got Gerald Washington. 14, Andy Ruiz. Number 13 is Malik Scott, Bermain Stavern at 12, and Carlos Takam at 11. So top 10 coming very, very soon. Ideally, we'll drop that tomorrow if I can get time. So if you're new to the channel or you haven't subscribed before for whatever reason, please take the time to hit the subscribe button so you'll get a notification on your homepage when that video goes up, and you won't miss out any of my other stuff. That'll be much appreciated. And if you enjoyed the video, please take the time to hit the thumbs up button. Many thanks indeed for watching. Cheers.